Good afternoon and welcome to TLC series known as Webinar Wednesday. My name is Jameson Reynolds and I'm the Director of Marketing Strategy with TLC. I would like to welcome everybody back. We took a little hiatus during the month of July to give it a little bit of a break, to come up with some new topics, to some focus on some other initiatives that the TLC team has been working on. And as we get back into the Webinar Wednesday series, I'd like to welcome you back. Our first session since our break is going to be circulating a classroom library during a pandemic. This is going to be presented to you by Samantha Martz. Samantha is the instructor for the library.solution product line that TLC has to offer, and many of you are probably aware of the fact that in addition to data services and other services that we offer, we may be known for our two library management software platforms, library.solution and Carl. This session is going to focus specifically on what library.solution has to offer, specifically some functionality through what is commonly known as academic reserves. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and pass it to Samantha. And Samantha, please take it away.
All right. Thank you, Jameson. Let me just close this out here because while I'm going to be talking today, I'm actually going to be demoing the live software. So good afternoon, everybody. As Jameson already introduced, I'm Samantha Martz, software instructor for library.solution. And as you said, today I'm going to be presenting some unique ways to circulate your collections in light of the changes that the pandemic has brought before us. We're going to be using academic reserves and creating and sharing lists in LS2 Pack and a couple of other small tools right in the library.solution for schools platform to kind of manage what I'm going to be calling as classroom libraries as an alternative for your normal library use this coming school year. So as I said, academic reserve is going to be the main tool that we talk about in actually setting these up. Now, it's probably something that you aren't used to having in your K through 12 setting for academic reserves, as it's typically put to use in a college library setting to manage books that professors want to put on reserve for in-library use or other special circulation periods. The idea that I'm going to present to you today is going to allow you to circulate your already cataloged books in small subsets in the form of individual classroom libraries, because many of you may not know what your library time for your school is going to look like in this coming year and may need to use some creative workflows. So we're going to be setting up these classroom libraries so you can keep tracks of not only what teachers these books may be with, but then also have the ability to check them out to each student as well. So it kind of gives you a twofold opportunity to track them. The idea here is that you may be traveling with a cart of books to classroom to classroom, or you may divvy up these books just for teachers to use in their classroom to help keep track of them beyond just your checkout. You may also have a self-service area using products like our Novel Branch mini library for students to access these books even if they are on campus at different times than their teacher. Using academic reserves is going to allow you to sort and categorize the books on your end and also allow them to be uniquely searched in LS2 Pack for students as well as teachers, and I'm going to be showing that feature down the line. That being said, we're going to throw a poll out there. For your schools, are faculty and staff currently returning to the school building in the fall? And you guys can answer right on your screen. There's yes, full-time, part-time, not at all. And if any of you want to share or what's going on in your school, if you know, feel free to in the chat. All right, so there are our answers. It looks like a lot of you are going to be back at least full-time. May not know exactly how that's going to look like. So like I said, this could be an opportunity that you can set up. All right, going back to academic reserves, in our library.solution, in LS2 staff, which is our circulation module, academic reserves is actually included in the staff services part of it. If you are already a Library.Solution customer and you do not already see your Academic Reserves module, permission will need to be enabled in LS2 Preferences, which is the background of the software, under Security, Roles, and then the LS2 Staff module. There's actually two different individual permissions for Academic Reserves, one to view and then one to actually manage reserves, and you can turn on the one that's appropriate for your staff. So when we're actually creating an Academic Reserve, that works on three parts. One is already having the materials cataloged in your database. The second one is already having the instructor or teacher you need to assign materials to in your database, and having some sort of holdings code set up. To add a reserve, we're simply going to use that button I clicked, and it's going to open this Add New Reserve modal. The first piece of mention, as I mentioned, is going to be your instructor. They'll already be enabled in the system. We can either search them by last name, or if you happen to have their barcode number handy. Second is going to be collection. And this part is open to interpretation of what will work best for your library. As we've seen here, I have a couple of already reserve type holdings codes set up. So these are circulating as either 1-day reserve, 3-hour reserve. You can also still assign the same collection code that this book already resides in. So if we're putting a children's nonfiction book on reserve, you can still circulate it in that holdings code that's already created if you're not planning to change any of those circulation periods because of how the library is going to work now post-pandemic or during the pandemic. You may have already thought ahead, your library admin team, about creating different holdings codes to either lengthen checkout periods based on new policy, but do make sure if you're creating new holdings codes that those are properly linked in your LS2 Preferences Rules Link Manager. So I'm just going to select this 1-day reserve holdings code that I already have set up. The next part here, you also have an opportunity to apply a department and or a course code for the material you are going to be assigning to reserve. Now these again, these are examples that we have in the server that I'm using today, and they are set up based on your typical college department and course code that you receive. If you decide to use departments and course codes, these are created in LS2 Preferences under Types and Codes for Academic Reserves. Department and course are not required to set up an Academic Reserve. So I'm going to go ahead and leave those blank for my example. Next is Expiration Date. Again, this is not a required piece, but it does help you in managing your reserves. In a typical use case, expiration date may be set to something like the end of a college semester. But again, depending on how you at your library choose to circulate these, you can set the expiration date based on that as well. So if you're going to allow these books to be in a classroom for a month, we could set it up where they would, expire on September 7th. So if I was creating this library today, I could set them to expire a month from now. One thing to keep in mind with this expiration date, it is not a manual it is not an automatic date at which the system will automatically take these things off reserve. It is a housekeeping date for you that I'll show in the management tools of how to take these things off reserve. For example, you can also run reports using this date to help you determine when to remove items from the Academic Reserve shelf, or if you're using that novel branch mini library. There's also a comment area. This is only seen by you here in the LS2 staff side of Academic Reserves. So if there's something you need to know about this particular book that you are putting on reserve, that is what that space is for. Once all the relevant information is selected, here in the item area, you can either scan a barcode if you have that material in front of you, or search by title. I'm going to be searching by title today because it's easiest for me in my server. So I'm just going to choose this 501 writing prompts. You can see here when you are in the search screen, if you're not using a specific barcode, you can tell the format and what collection that material was already in. So if you have things with similar titles but are either different format or cataloged differently, you can make sure you're selecting the correct one. I'm going to click on the individual item I want to have, and then it will be here in my reserve screen. Now, what's really great about this reserves module is right now I have this one in here for my English teacher of writing prompts, this item ID for this holdings code, and that one is actually already applied. So what I could do is come in here, and if I needed to move to the next instructor's library, I could remove them, type in my next instructor's either name or barcode number, select them. I could even change up the reserve collection. So if this one was going to be a little bit different, I could select that. I could even decide to put in a department and course code if that was something I was using for a specific subset. And then I could choose another book here, and let's use Writing Magic. And it actually saves them individually without me having to hit save, close the screen, open it up again. So each of these are saved differently with their own unique identifiers. So I'm going to go ahead and save these two reserves because I'm done adding materials for today. And you're going to see them populated in the middle of my reserve screen here. Here's the 501 writing prompts that I added today. And then right here's the one Writing Magic that I added for our additional teacher. So there's a number of tools on this screen as well to help you manage these items on reserve. At the top, if you need to do mass unassigning, you can select them all and unassign as selected, or you can do them individually using this red minus sign. There are also these tools to help you filter things. As I mentioned, the expiration date is one of those tools you can use. I can see things like this book that I assigned the other day. It's due to expire today, and I can use that as a filter, so I can easily take that off of my academic reserve shelf, and it will simply send it back to whatever holdings code it originated from. So it will now be taken off reserve and go back to its normal circulation collection. Some other things you can also do are sorting here. So if I wanted to sort by instructor to see those all lined up, or title or department, you can also customize what headers you see here. So if we right click on the headers, these are all of the points of information that we could see, or our staff can see right here on the academic reserve screen. So if there were different things that were relevant that we wanted to see, we can turn these on and off simply by clicking that blue check mark. Once you have which headers you want to see, you can also very easily left click on them and pull them over so different information is right on the front of your screen. So if we wanted to see expiration date a little bit closer in, we can pull that in as well. There is also an export to CSV option. So if you do get quite a large amount of books here in your academic reserves and how you decide to use it, CSV might be a great way to manage that and maybe shelf read, or to do when you do collections for those, and it will download right to your machine. So we have another poll that will be going out, and that's going to be, will students be returning to your school in the fall? And they're going to put that up on the screen. So you have students are coming back full time, students are only doing virtual. We also have students are doing combination or other, where you can feel free to share in the chat if you want to offer up what your school is looking to do in the fall. All right, and we have our results up. Looks like we're going to be doing a lot of combinations out there, and this will also work well with combinations as well, because I'm going to go and talk on to my next part of academic reserves, which actually is my favorite part of academic reserves, and it's how it can help you manage these unique classroom library setups. And that's actually an LS2 pack, which is your online public access catalog. So this is the landing page for that. So first off, let's just say your students come into your pack and they're doing their typical search. Right here on the left-hand side, we actually have a facet that's dedicated to academic reserves, and this is one of two ways that they can access it. So if they're doing some kind of search and they remember that you said, oh yeah, check academic reserves to see if my teacher has a special collection set up, and we can use that and be taken right into all of the reserves with some limiters right here on the side. But there is also an exclusive academic reserve search that's going to be here either under more search options, or it's actually going to be a line item here. This is something else that if you're not seeing the academic reserves dedicated search, this is something that's turned on in LS2 admin, which is your behind the scenes configuration for LS2 PAC. And that one is under general settings, access settings, allow academic reserves. And it does have to be turned on for each of your branch configurations for LS2 PAC. Once this is turned on, you can access academic reserves in either of those manners that I mentioned. So here in the dedicated search, we start on the screen, and you can go ahead and when you're running this search, we can either limit it to one of the departments, courses, or even instructors that are assigned in the module, or we can go out and view all reserves, where we are taken to the screen that we saw before, where we can still do the limiters. So if we scroll down our results here, we can easily see what instructors these are on reserve for. If departments are applied, we can see those as well. And if I scroll down a little bit further, here I have a full listing with department, course, and instructor. Any of your students who are viewing this can easily go in and view the whole title details screen of the material that they're interested in. Another feature that I like about this academic reserve search, especially when we're talking about setting this up in a unique way as a classroom library. Let's say you set a classroom library up for a teacher. You have you have 7 copies of this American Favorite Poems book, but you only gave 1 copy to Samantha. You can see here there's a show additional copies option where we can actually click that, and it will show you all of the other copies of this book that are available in your library. In this case, my server is set up as multi-location, so it's showing us copies at other locations, but can actually work either way. So anyone viewing the pack can not only see the one that you have on reserve, but can also see other copies and potentially place holds on them, or if it's a teacher, request that to be brought into their classroom library for the next use. Finally, there's also a few reports in LS2 reports that if I just run a quick search here on academic reserves, a few reports to help you manage those things as well. They're kind of going to line up with your typical reports that you may use. So items that are actually in reserve, and then you have your lost and overdue. All in all, academic reserves does provide a unique way to help you manage your library in this unprecedented time. Sometimes it may be a few extra clicks, but if you really need to have a twofold level of accountability for your teacher and then the student, or just want a unique way to present books to your school in this unprecedented time, this is one tool that we are offering to you. Before I offer some ways about how are we actually going to figure out what books we're putting into these classroom libraries through academic reserves, we have one final poll, and that's going to be, will your library or media center be open this fall? And we have your choices are yes, yes, but with limited access, no, and of course, if you have any other that you can share in chat about what your school will be doing with the library media center this fall. And our results for that looks like limited access won out. So that's probably why you all are in attendance here, trying to find unique ways to present your library. So since we're going to have that limited access, as I mentioned, how are we going to even decide what books to put in here? what are some other ways that maybe if you don't use this full workflow, some ways that we can find out materials that teachers may want to use or have access to. And that's going to actually take place here in LS2 Pack using another tool that as long as your teachers or faculty are logged in. So I'm going to go ahead and log into LS2 Pack using my library barcode number and PIN. And once, again, even your students could use this. Students or staff, once they're logged in, we're going to be using the list feature, creating a list feature in LS2 Pack to curate lists that can actually be sent out. So let's say a teacher was doing a unit on polar bears. I'm going to go ahead and run my search on that. And this was going to be a class project, and she wanted to be able to keep a set of books in her classroom to be able to circulate to her students so they could have alternative resources where maybe they couldn't visit the library like they normally would. So in LS2 Pack, as I mentioned, the teacher would already be logged in like I am, and she would start her search. You can always use the facets on the left-hand side if they needed to narrow down, like, you know, we only want books in this, so that's going to help us narrow down our search. So one thing that you will see here is as we scroll down through our results, we actually have an Add to List button. And it's very easy to add things to a list. I already, I thought I had a polar bear list started, but I could simply create new list. I have my polar bear list created, and I can go down through here and add a couple of books that I want to send along to my librarian for her to pull for me. And this is going to be without the teacher even stepping foot in the library. Everything that they are looking at is going to be in Pack. And I'm just going to populate a few things on my list here. Once your list is populated by the teacher, they will come up to their My Account area, and they have a Saved List option. And in our Personal List area here, we have my polar bear list that I created. We can see our 4 books that I put in here. You know, maybe on second glance, you can always remove them. She could even place a hold if she wanted to view one of those beforehand if your library uses holds. But most importantly, there's the Share This link. And Share This is actually going to allow your teacher or whoever is curating the list to either send it to you as the library media specialist, or potentially they could even send it out to students to take a look at these books, place one on hold, and we'll have it brought to the classroom to be able to pick up in the library. So you can even put in a message on here. And I'll put that in real quick. And that will get sent directly to you. Again, no face-to-face contact. They're looking at it here in Pack, sending you the list virtually. One great option for curating how students are going to view your books. You would then take this list to pull your books and input them into academic reserves if you wish to use that workflow I showed earlier, and then send them along to the teacher. Another cool kind of underrated search option in here is, this is really more for your classroom teachers, is also here under More Search Options, and it's the reading level search. So maybe your teacher doesn't know specifically what they want in mind to pull for their classroom library, but if your school uses either Lexile or AR, you can actually use this search to put in a generic Lexile measure. So let's say 1100 is my Lexile. You can either search on that strict Lexile, or the LS2 Pack actually would generate a range for you could use. And we could search all of the books in our catalog based on that range. And you can even put in a subject or keyword search. So if your teacher really wanted to get back into that polar bear mindset, you could run a search just on that, again, within the reading level. And in this case, I only have one in my database, but you'll see that it has both the search results for polar bear and that Lexile that we were looking for. One thing to keep in mind, the creating lists and this reading level search are only available in the full LS2 Pack here. They're not in the LS2 Kids version of our catalog if you are using that. One other quick tool that I want to talk about that not only is going to help you facilitate library management in this unique situation, but it generally makes student minute easier as well. And that's the setup and creation of responsible party links of teachers to students. So if I search for my teacher earlier, and you may have saw this when I pulled them up, you can actually set up a teacher and have all of the students linked to the teacher's account for you to be able to very easily and quickly back and forth. I need to check out Sarah's book. You can check that out. Then we click back into the responsible party account. Then I go to Carmen's account. This works even better if your school has the ability to bulk upload student yearbook photos, and you can go strictly off of photos and names here and not even have to have a physical card or have them use, fingerprint scanners. Again, keeping social distancing in mind, all within the software here. Now, responsible party links of this size, if you have a teacher, sometimes they have 15, 20 or more students. It's not easily managed from year to year in a manual process by you. And it does work best if you have a student information system process in place that bulk uploads your student and teacher data on a regular schedule. There are also a handful of reports based on responsible party that, again, help you with that kind of management. You have your typical ones where you can search out for your borrowers and overdues by responsible party, but we also have these really great scannable barcode lists by responsible party where you can actually generate this list, have all the barcodes printed out in front of you, and maybe if you didn't want to flip back and forth between pictures, you could scan your barcode to go from student to student. I want to take this time to thank you for joining me today on this journey through Library.Solution for schools to potentially help create a unique, trying to get my right slide up there, create a unique alternative for you to use in managing your library in the future. I think we'll take this time to answer a few questions now.
Samantha, that was a great session. Thank you very much for conducting that. And I personally really appreciate the fact that you showed it weaving in between not just staff, but also staff preferences, reports, and as well as the pack, because there's lots of elements to this, and it was really appreciated. You kind of touched on all of that. I do want to give everybody a chance to, if you did have a question, to go ahead and use this as an opportunity to key this question in. While we're waiting for some questions to come in, I do want to point out the fact again that we did have some handouts attached to this session as well. So when you're looking at this session, you can see that there is a session there for Library.Solution for schools, some help file information that really kind of gets into a little bit more of the weeds on how academic reserves works. And I do know that academic reserves is a term that's sometimes thought of at the higher education level, but as Samantha clearly made it known, this is definitely something that can be used in any really kind of situation, especially during for classroom circulating during a pandemic. There's some information there about LS2 kids. There's a handout there for Novel Branch, which is a mini library, which is a thing that we have partnered with and we are selling, and we can get you more information on the Novel Branch, as well as the V-Ray, which is a portable UV sterilizer that will make it a little easier for you to disinfect from a UV standpoint some of your materials that are going in and out. I'm sure that is something that is of interest to people that are on this call. Okay, so while I've been going through that, we did get a question in from the audience. Will the books be checked out to each teacher? So Samantha, when you put material into reserves, is it getting checked out to the teacher?
So that's one of the reasons why we kind of presented this in academic reserves. They actually do not get checked out to the teacher. They're simply assigned to the teacher so that if you do want to take it the next step and check it out to the student, you kind of have twofold knowing where that book is. I assigned this to Mrs. So-and-so, and then I maybe went to the library and checked it out to Johnny so-and-so, so you know what classroom that book is in and then what individual student it would be going to. So if you wanted to eventually check it out, it would actually be to the student, not to the teacher.
Okay, thank you, Samantha. Let's see if we have any other questions that may come in. We'll give everybody a second or two to, maybe even longer than a second or two, to type in any questions that anybody might have. While we're waiting to see if we have any other questions that are coming in, we are going to be populating new sessions on our webinar page on our website. I do highly recommend everyone to go to the website in order to see the upcoming sessions that are coming up. I will say next week is a session that I am really excited to bring to everyone. And by I mean we, TLC. We as a company are in the process of a major undertaking where we are actually, for those of our customers that are hosted, we are actually rolling out and really bringing to the forefront cloud services and bringing everyone's attention to cloud services. And as part of that, we are actually in the process of migrating our customer bases as well as our own internal server environment and our own hosting needs into the Oracle Cloud infrastructure, into OCI. This is a major undertaking for our company. We have a long-standing relationship with Oracle, but this is a next generation step in that evolution and that relationship. And next week, I will be hosting a roundtable with myself, John Burns, who is our Chief Operating Officer, and Justin Dulzanizer, who is our Chief Technology Officer. We will be discussing what is going into this and the ramifications of this. So we are really excited to bring this to everyone's attention. Okay, so actually we did have some questions while I was teasing next week's session. Does each teacher have his or her own login to be able to circulate within their reserved collections? And so how do we pay for those? So this is kind of a two-part question, yeah. Samantha, based on somewhat licensing, but also with the actual usage of LS2 staff.
So yes, technically, if you're going to go as far as letting the teachers access LS2 staff to check out, they would need some kind of login to be able to do that. And then I assume on the sales side, there is some kind of licensing involved. I do not have all of the details about the sales side of that, but I'm sure if you were interested in that, that's something that you could reach out to sales for. There are ways talking to potentially giving teachers access to LS2 staff. If you're not familiar with an LS2 preferences, you can create roles that are very minimal, where you would be able to give teachers or volunteers or whoever just very minimal access to only be able to do strictly checkouts, and then you as the librarian would be managing everything else.
Right, and to piggyback on Samantha's answer as far as the licensings go, as far as users, I would highly recommend, if you are interested in doing something along these lines, please, if you are already a Library.Solution for Schools customer, I would highly recommend reaching out to our inside sales team. I'm sure that they would be more than happy to check on the structure that your school district is, or your school is utilizing Library.Solution for Schools, and we would be able to see your licensing in your seats, just to make sure that we would have that covered. And then if we were to have to expand that or move some things around, they would be more than happy to work with you on that. I always recommend, again, if you don't want to come to our website or give us a call, you can always shoot us a simple email at info@tlcdelivers.com, and they would be able to get that information to you. We have been toying with creating lists in the pack and using the RSS feed option to post that list online, but we are having trouble getting the RSS feed upload into our LibGuides. Are there any known issues with this or any tips or tricks that might help? Samantha, have you ever utilized the RSS feeds when working with lists in LS2 Pack?
I have not personally, so that is something that I will have to reach out to possibly our product team and see if they know that there are any known issues or best practices, if they've worked with people with LibGuides before. I know LibGuides is sometimes a limited platform of how they input things, so that's something I'll have to get in touch with someone and get back to you.
Okay, and this last question, I do want to bring attention to it. I'm not sure if Samantha, honestly, if there is enough time left for you to be able to address this, because this really goes into how schools and school districts want to utilize the system. But the question is, does TLC have recommendations for cleaning circulated items? And actually, now that I think about it, I think I was actually thinking from a data standpoint when I look at this, because I'm so used to talking about the data side. But as we are in the time of COVID-19, I actually think this was literally referring to the cleaning and the disinfecting of materials. And Samantha, I'll go ahead and jump in on this answer. Again, I would highly recommend checking out the handout that we do have for the V-Ray. That is a UV sterilizer that, as the material is underneath that UV after a couple of seconds, it's become disinfected that way. One thing I would note is we as a company are not in a position to make recommendations to anyone on this webinar on how they should handle cleaning circulated items. We are by no means a health authority. I would highly recommend following CDC guidelines, following local health department guidelines. I know there is varying information out there as far as how long you should quarantine things, set things aside, what is the best way to handle that. It is not for us to make that recommendation to you, but I would highly recommend reaching out, seeing what resources are out there and making the best determination as far as what is applicable to you and your institution. And on that note, I am going to go ahead and end today's webinar. We have exceeded, we try to keep these at about a half hour. We've gone a little bit long, which is okay, which is great. It means we had good content to cover. But to thank everybody for attending. I would like to thank Samantha Martz for a great session talking about reserves. I did talk about next week's session. I highly recommend everybody checking that out. It's going to be pretty exciting and pretty informative. And for more information, please hit our website at tlcdelivers.com, and our webinars address is tlcdelivers.com/webinars. Hey, thanks everybody. Have a great afternoon. Stay safe and stay healthy, and keep washing your hands. Thank you.